You have 24 hours to surrender your world.
24 hours? That's more than enough.
The sky over Geneva cracked open at dawn. A ship the size of a mountain range slid out of the clouds, blotting out the sun. No missiles, no warning shots, just silence, and the low hum of something ancient and certain of its own power. Inside that ship stood the Vorrak Dominion, a species that had conquered 11 worlds without losing a single battle. To them, war was not a risk. It was a formality. Their broadcast hit every screen on Earth at the same moment. Species designation: human. You have 24 hours to surrender your world. Resistance is statistically irrelevant. Comply, and you'll be spared. In an underground command bunker beneath Colorado, Colonel Sarah Mei Chen watched the message loop on repeat. She wasn't a general. She wasn't famous. She was the last ranking officer left standing after the Vorrak's first strike had wiped out 3 command centers in under a minute. A strike meant to remove any human capable of organizing resistance. They had missed her by 11 miles and 40 minutes. Sarah didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She looked at the countdown clock ticking down from 24 hours and did something the Vorrak never accounted for. She started planning. Because the Vorrak had studied humanity's weapons. They had studied our cities, our armies, our satellites. They had never studied our people. And Sarah Chen had spent her whole career preparing for the day someone bigger, stronger, and more arrogant underestimated exactly what a cornered human being was capable of. The Vorrak commander, Threl Vosk, stood on his bridge, watching Earth's cities light up with useless mobilization. Tanks, jets, nuclear silos opening like frightened eyes. He almost laughed. Primitive, he said to his second, a hulking Vorrak named Draith. They still believe metal wins wars. 12 hours had passed. Sarah Chen stood in the ruins of what used to be NORAD, surrounded by the survivors of a dozen broken units, soldiers, engineers, a teenage hacker who'd been arrested twice for breaching government servers before the invasion started. Now he was her best asset. Above them, 3 Vorrak warships descended toward Colorado, drawn by heat signatures from the bunker. Thousands of Vorrak soldiers marched down in formation, armor gleaming, weapons that could vaporize a tank in one shot. Sarah's team had exactly 1 railgun for working rifles and no air support. "Colonel," a young corporal whispered, voice shaking. "We can't win this." Sarah didn't answer right away. She was watching the Vorrak formation through binoculars, counting something the boy hadn't noticed. The Vorrak marched in perfect, rigid lines. Every soldier moved the same way, at the same speed, trusting completely in their armor and their numbers. They had never needed to improvise. Not once, in 11 conquered worlds. Threl Vosk's voice echoed over open comms, translated by their own arrogance into English so humanity could hear its own doom. "Kneel," he said, "and this ends painlessly." Sarah lowered the binoculars. "Tell your commander," she said quietly to the hacker beside her. "We accept his terms." The boy stared at her, horrified. Sarah smiled for the first time in 12 hours. Just not the way he thinks. The Vorrak soldiers stopped 300 meters from the bunker entrance, waiting for the human surrender signal Sarah had just transmitted. What they got instead was silence. Then the ground beneath their perfect formation lit up, not with explosives, but with electromagnetic pulses tuned to a frequency the hacker had reverse-engineered from the Vorrak's own communication satellites in the last 6 hours. Every piece of Vorrak armor, wired for constant data sharing with their fleet, seized at once. Threl Vosk watched his soldiers freeze mid-step on his bridge monitors, armor locked stiff as statues. "Impossible," he snarled. "Their technology is centuries behind ours." "Their technology, yes," came a new voice over his own command channel. Sarah's voice, calm and unshaken. "But you built your armor to trust our satellites for orbital positioning. We just told it to lie." While the Vorrak ground force stood frozen like iron statues in the Colorado dust, Sarah's remaining soldiers moved fast and quiet, placing charges at the joints of every disabled suit. Not to kill, but to strip them of weapons one by one. Threl Vosk finally understood. This wasn't a war of armor against armor. This was never a fight he could win with strength. He ordered an orbital strike on the bunker itself, desperate now, done playing by the rules of acceptable losses. But Sarah had one more piece of the trap ready. The teenage hacker had spent the last hour doing something no Vorrak had ever imagined a human capable of, hijacking the guidance systems of Threll's own orbital weapon platform. The strike Threll, ordered on Earth, never reached the ground. It turned, silently, gracefully, and slammed directly into the lead Vorrak warship's engine core. The explosion lit up the Colorado sky brighter than the dawn that had started this war. Threll Voss's remaining ships retreated within the hour, dragging their frozen, disarmed soldiers back into orbit. 11 conquered worlds had taught the Vorrak that fear ended resistance. Earth taught them fear was the beginning of it. Sarah Chen stood in the wreckage as the sun set fully now, 24 hours after it had first been blotted from the sky. Smoke curled from a fallen Vorrak warship on the horizon like a monument to a mistake that would echo through the stars. The teenage hacker sat beside her, hands still shaking from adrenaline. "They'll come back," he said. "Won't they?" Sarah looked up at the darkening sky, where somewhere far beyond the clouds, the Vorrak Dominion was already recalculating everything it thought it knew about their species. "Let them," she said quietly. She wasn't smiling. She didn't need to, because humanity had never needed to be the strongest species in the galaxy. We only needed 24 hours to prove we were the most dangerous one.